Thank you. It's an honor to speak here. I'm gathering my thoughts. I still don't get used to talking to crowds. Yeah, you just seen, I've had quite a journey. I'm going to just get right into it. I've started out, I was born and raised in Minnesota, and my parents divorced when I was 7. And when they divorced, divorces weren't common back then. And I didn't realize how important the family unit really is. And I ended up moving to a new school, and in that school, I couldn't talk to, I was very shy, withdrawn. I could definitely not talk to people if I didn't know them. And I would do things to show off, to fit in, like jump out of a moving bus window, or, little things like that. And, but at my 5-year reunion, now I had dropped out of college after the first quarter. It was the hostage crisis in 1979. I told my roommate, I said, I'm out of here. The world's coming to an end. I'm going to go have fun. But I was working at a drive-in movie theater and a grocery store. I got fired at the one because I tried to tell him how to run his business. And at my 5-year reunion, all of these, it was, I hadn't done anything with my life yet, and all my classmates were there, and they're going, they had started families, they had been with their same job since high school, they had completed college, and they had all their whole careers ahead of them. Well, I took over that reunion and just started telling them all my things that had happened. I owed the mafia money for football bets. I jumped out of or skydiving, my parachute didn't open. My 20-some tickets on a motorcycle in 2 days. But these things were that was inside my head, all this pain, because I wanted what they wanted. And it was my way of not only fitting in, but it was that my self-worth, because my self-worth just kept getting worse and worse because of where I was at that point. Then in like 1984, I got introduced to cocaine, and with that, I could get this false courage. I could talk to people. I could do a very functioning cocaine addict. And and back then, I prayed to God. I said, I just want a family. I want everything I prayed for was handed to me on a silver platter. And so I was married 20 years, raised 4 kids, and we were both functioning addicts, but and we were like you'd say, I was running coaching Little League, and our neighborhood we were the place to go to. We were the fun family, and so but we did own bars and restaurants. I was always an entrepreneur, and one time I did a lunch wagon business, and another time I went into a carpet cleaning because my sister flooded a 2nd-story apartment building, and I said, well, I'll be a carpet cleaner, So, but these bars that I end up getting, I got them on contract for deed. I've never had any money, so to speak, but I built up those bars, and it was not a good place for an addict. And in 2003, there were a series of circumstances that happened where I had to sell those bars, and I had one 13 years. At the time, it just seemed devastating, absolutely devastating, and for me, I look back now, of course, that was a divine appointment. That had to happen. But I drove into the My Pillow. God gave it to me in a dream, and I would get these dreams, and the first thing I got was the name My Pillow, and I wrote it all over the house. In the middle of the night, I was probably still up doing drugs, but I wrote My Pillow all over the house, and my daughter came upstairs. She goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going to invent this pillow. It's going to be called My Pillow. It's going to change the world. And she grabbed her glass of water. She goes, that's really random, Dad. We headed back downstairs. And I took these, but at that time, I spent about the next year. By the way, in the year 2000, my cocaine, it turned to crack cocaine. And it's a totally different drug. It's a very paranoid drug. You can't, when I had my bars, anybody that was on crack, they weren't in the bars. They were home peeking out windows, and it's a horrific, all drugs are horrific, but that one really, for me to be able, people have asked me all the time, when did you quit crack? I said, January 16, 2009. When did you start My Pillow? 2004. And they're going, what? That's like a miracle in history if you're an addict. But But what happened was I put everything I had into it that's inventing the pillow. So it's kind of like I wasn't doing crack. I wasn't doing stuff at that time. You know, I'm out there every day. My son would come home from school and we try all these different things because I had this problem. My pillows would go flat. You've all seen the commercial. And so I had these problems, but I started asking people, and everybody had the same problem. I would say to my friends, I'm going to invent a pillow. It's going to be adjustable. And they're going, and I'm going to get a patent on it. They're going, wow, Mike's, you know, he must be on crack. Yeah, I was. No, you know, yeah, you know. And the other ones would say, if you do come up with it, I want one. And I spent a year making that, developing it, and we went broke. We had completely no money left from the bars, and because I didn't have, you know, I wasn't working at the time, just putting everything into that. And it got to be when my pillow was ready, we didn't have any money left. In fact, that year we had to borrow money for Christmas presents for the kids, because from an ex-bookie, by the way. So anyway, I put all the energy into inventing it. There's the pictures there. We worked out of that little garage on the upper right corner. I had to invent the machine. I'm with one of my sons there in the lower left. I had to learn how to sew. I didn't know a bobbin from a needle, you know, and learned how to sew. Well, then I was turned down everywhere. Every box store turned me down, and someone said, well, Mike, why didn't you do a kiosk? I said, well, how do you spell that? And we did this kiosk. Now remember, I had this fear of rejection, so I couldn't talk to people in a public setting. You know, I would go. Someone would ask me something. I just thought I didn't like small talk. And people with suits that ate with more than 2 forks really scared me. And so we did this kiosk, and I only worked like 1 day, because on a kiosk you walk around the outside and you're right with the customer, and they're coming up to the pillow and stuff. But basically we only sold like 80 pillows. My wife at the time worked almost all the hours, and I was there only the one time during that month that I had worked. This guy came up and he said, do you have a business card? And I go, oh, I'm all out. And I didn't know what a business card, are you kidding? I just wrote on a piece of paper. I said, here you go. And that guy called me that following January, or that January. We got through Christmas. We had nothing left. It had failed. And he called me up and he says, are you the guy that invented this pillow here in Minnesota? I said, yeah. He said, this changed my life. He said, this is a miracle product. And he said, I run the Minneapolis Home and Garden Show. Would you like a spot in there? And I said, okay. Well, when I went into that, I put a table in front of me. That's why I'm hiding behind the podium. I'm getting okay. But I had a table, and I set up the booth different. And I look back now I could talk to people. If I stood up behind the booth, I couldn't talk. I got behind the booth because they were coming to me. And the next day, people kept coming to that show to tell me how it had changed their life, just to confirming, and I felt good inside. It wasn't about the money. I felt some self-worth, and so I fed off of that. And so I did shows and fairs for the next 7 years, but during that time, we had everything happen to my pillow that could possibly happen. And by the way, people tried to take it. There was betrayal. There was my own crack addiction. We had been turned down at all the box stores, shopping channels, and we were literally making the pillows, labeling them in our living room in the spring of 2007. And it was lights out. We were losing our house, and at that time, 10 days later, I was divorced of 20 years. She couldn't take all the pressure, and these guys were taking everything. And so I lost a 20-year marriage, and then these guys taking the pillow company. But the pillow kept going like a pulse, just a little pulse. I never broke trust with the show promoters. Anytime I went to a show, I never broke my trust with them, ever. I was on time. I was there. It was it was amazing. Every customer I had, I would drive halfway across Iowa, Wisconsin. Most was in the Midwest here. I did a lot of shows in Des Moines. But I would drive for that customer. If somebody wasn't going to get their pillow in time, I would drive 6 hours to get there and to treat it like every customer like it was my only customer. But it just made me feel good to do something good. It was all about that. Well, then things really got black in 2008. Things got very dark, and But a couple of years earlier, I had done a little television show. I went down to buy drugs in Minneapolis, and this gal that seen me at a home show, she said, "Mike, could you come on our station?" So she's a nice Christian lady that had this station, and I go in there, and she goes, or she said, "Could you stop by?" Now I hadn't had my drugs yet, and they put me on this show. She goes, "You go out there on the show." I go, "I can't go out there," and it was just a 5-minute clip on this guy interviewing me like it was at the shows about the pillow. Well, everyone that watched that my friends said, anyone that watched it said, "What, were you on drugs?" And my friends that knew me said, "You didn't have any drugs, did you?" And I'm going, it was terrible. But she kept running this, and I would get calls in the middle of the night. She'd usually run it at like 3 in the morning. Well, you get, but in 2008, it was like I say, things happened in 2008 that had to happen to where I am now. By the way, during the time, all those years, we'd be in after the bars closed, and we'd be in these rooms, or like maybe my friend's house, whatever. I would be telling them about the Bible I read in jail and telling them about God, and they'd be set free the next morning. I go, "I'm losing friends. What did I say?" I had this. It was me trying to talk myself into it. So that being said, I would always tell. There's like 28 people with my book coming out that quit on their last day, and I'm going, "What am I? I'm losing friends here. I better just not talk to them." But in the spring of 2008, I was up 14 days and on crack, because there were things that had happened during that time. Right at the beginning of those 14 days, I got that Channel 6. I got a call about 8 o'clock at night. I was all by myself at this place I had bought. I was losing that place too, this old farm place out in some rural area. And I'm still up. Of course, I was doing cocaine, and this lady called. She says, "Are you the guy on Channel 6? She said, I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, I'm calling to pray with you. What you're doing is so important to God." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Go ahead." And so she prays for like a half hour. I'd be putting her on mute and doing lines, and now 2 hours later, another lady calls. Now I have these ladies, they're in my book. Another lady calls, she goes, "Are you the guy on Channel 6? He says, God's been telling me, I've been praying, and you need to, whatever you're doing, you need to keep doing this. It's like a platform for something so big." And I said, she goes, "Can I pray?" I go, "Sure." So we prayed. It was actually probably about an hour and a half. And now at 3 in the morning, a guy calls up. He says, "Are you this?" And you got to realize I would take maybe 2 calls a week for pillows. So this is like an anomaly in history. Says, "Yeah, are you that guy? Are you this guy on Channel 6? And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I don't believe in God, but I keep getting these dreams. I'm supposed to call and tell you what you're doing is important to God." And he goes, "I hope my dreams stop. You blah, blah, blah." Hangs up the phone. And now at 8 o'clock in the morning, the last call came in, and this lady calls up, and I go, "You don't want a bad pillow, you want to pray." She goes, "How did you know?" I said, "It seems to be the thing tonight." So she prays this, and now, and a few days later, my sister called up and she says, "God's tired of waiting. You have a big calling, and we all have callings on our life, but she says, you have a big calling, and you've got to quit standing in front of semis," which means I've had 14 near-death experiences. I almost got complacent that I would come out, whatever it was, the other end, and be okay. But what she meant like that, like he's waiting. Well, now 14 days went by, and I had a warrant out for my arrest for a crime that thing I didn't do. I really didn't. So I'm downtown Minneapolis, in the worst part of Minneapolis, and these drug dealers, I come out of the room, and they're all 3 standing there, and I go, "What are you guys doing?" We go, "It was an intervention." They all go, "Mike's been up for 14 days, and we're all cutting him off." And these guys knew of each other, but they had never met. And the guy goes, he looks at me in disgust. He goes, "You're not getting anything from my guys." And 2 of them left, and he says, "How much crack you have left?" I had a couple crack rocks left, so anyway, I'm smoking them, and I look over. Finally, he goes to sleep at 2 in the morning, and I head down to the streets, and I can't buy crack anywhere. I mean, these are addicts and dealers. I'm going, either they got the word out real good or that was God just blocking it. And I came back upstairs defeated after an hour, and he's waiting there for me, and he goes, how'd that work out for you? He said, give me your phone. He says, I'm going to take a picture of you. He says, you've been telling us for years this pillow is a platform for God, and you're going to come back someday and help us all get out of this, what we're in. This is the picture he took that night. And by the way, 2 of these guys are born again Christians now that work for me. So it has come for us. But now that, so I slept for 2 days that night, and I went back to, I woke up and I had to get to some papers to Carver, Minnesota, to where I was working out of a little schoolhouse, but I had that warrant out, and I go, you know what, I have to take a chance or the pillow company wouldn't be here. I had to get these papers to my brother. So I take the chance, I drive out to Carver, and I'm going to court the following Tuesday. I'm going to be found innocent. It's all going to be great. I get there, I pull into the schoolhouse, and sure enough, Larry the cop pulls right out. And you're trapped, once you get in there. So he gets out, I grab the papers, he goes, Mike, stop. He goes, you're under arrest. And I do it just like this. I go, Larry, if these papers I said, you're going to arrest me anyway, but I said, these papers don't get to my brother. It's something about God. I said, it's going to affect millions of people in the future. And I said, and Larry, I'm going to throw you a bonus here. I said, you're going to arrest me anyway. Next Tuesday, I'll be found innocent. And if I'm not, you can arrest me anytime, and I promise I'll have cocaine on me. And now Larry, now I'm going to jump ahead to tell you this. Just this last fall, I in my hometown, that Carver, Minnesota, I was there to throw on a float to throw out little pillows to the kids. And I hadn't seen Larry since that day, 9 years. And he pulls up in his police car and he jumps out and he goes, Mike, I go, Larry, and he goes, am I in that book? You know what I did for you, for the kingdom, And I asked Larry, I said, Larry, why? By the way, I was found innocent the following Tuesday. But Larry says to me, I go, Larry, why did you do it? Why did you believe me? And he goes, Mike, he says, your eyes, you believed it. You would have passed a lie detector test. You believed it. And he goes, I didn't want to be a part of screwing up this, whatever it was. Anyway, so that was in the spring. Then that fall, my son came in the driveway and he said, I have to leave, Dad. He was 18. And I thought I was hiding this, and everything was crumbling, but it had been crumbling for a long time. But he left, and I got all choked up in the driveway without making a thing. I go, yeah, that's fine. And he didn't have it. I knew why. And then in December of 2008, my friend came to me. This is very key. It's where my platform is now. He came to me, and he was my equal. He had been straight for 3 years. We had both started cocaine at the same time, both started crack at the same time. And he had been clean for 3 years. I had heard he had found the Lord or something, that we didn't know, and I hadn't talked to him in a year. He came walking in. I go, Dick, what are you doing? He goes, the Lord led me here. He goes, what are you doing? And I said, well, as long as you're here, I got some questions for you. And the first question I asked him, I said, is it boring? And he said, no, man, it ain't boring. But no one else could have came to me at that moment in time where I could draw. He was my hope. You know what I mean? It was like I seen, this hope. Well, I didn't quit that day. It was a month later. Now, a month later, it was January 16, 2009, and I knew that day. They say, Mike, was that your bottom? Well, I mean, sure, I didn't have any money left, or this would be this great comeback with God. All things are possible. But I made a deal. I told God, I said, I'm gonna do this platform thing, and I want to wake up in the morning and never have the desire for anything again, the drugs, the alcohol, the cigarette, everything. And then I'll do this platform deal, And the next day I woke up and it was gone, the desires, right? And now for the sake of time, I'm going to fast forward. Then this thing, my sister, I went to her and she goes, you got to pray for favor. And because I felt a peace about me that day that it was gone. And I said, you need to pray for favor. Well, a week later, I had to my company was taken by this, like a hostile takeover thing. I needed to come up with $30,000 cash with not a dime in the world. And to make a long story short, I went into these guys that were kind of mavericks, and I didn't know. I had never met them before. And I'm wearing a T-shirt, carrying a pillow, and I needed cash with no collateral. I walked in, there's a CIEIO, a CIO, a COO, and all these C's wearing suits, and I'm petrified because I can't talk, and I'm, and I had to give them this spiel about the pillow, and I said, these guys took my company. I used to be a crack cocaine addict. I'm going to do all these shows. I'm going to have an infomercial someday. And the CFO goes, well, when did you quit crack? I said, last Thursday. And four of them got up and left the room like Shark Tank, said, for that reason, we're out. Well, they leave, and the other 4 did it. Now, I look back now, obviously, they got zapped. I mean, it was a divine appointment there. But these things happened all the time then. But during that stretch, I had to get my company back, and it sat like that, doing shows and fairs and recovering everything. But 2 months after that when I quit, my church, I felt drawn to this treatment center. It was an outpatient treatment center. And I said, I'm going to go there and find out why I was addicted in the first place, because I didn't have the desire, but I wanted to know, because I had been in other centers where they just shame you. Yeah, you're a bad guy. You spent all your money. You hurt your kids. Yeah, now I feel worse, and I don't have my drugs, And I walked in there the first night, and my counselor, he says, I tell him, I used to be a crack addict. I quit 2 months ago. I don't really need help, but I'm going to have a book someday. I'm going to have a platform that's going to evangelize to, I'm just telling him all these things that's happening right now. And he went home and told his wife that night. He said, you should have seen this guy came in. He hired a kite, and But I went into his room, or his first night in treatment, and he sat there, and I started saying how much drugs I did, whatever I was, and he says, stop right there. He says, we're not here to tell about how much you did or how much you didn't do or your bottoms, and he says, tell me about your father. And I go, what does that have to do with it? I had a great childhood. It brought it back to the divorce. And I learned so much there about wounds that, addiction comes from wounds, from trauma, childhood, and fatherlessness. That's it. It's not a disease. And that's my belief. And anyway, so I learned a lot there, and it planted seeds of going forward. But now 2 years went by. I get up to 2011, and I said, and by then, I was functioning with the shows, and I told my friends and family, I have a dream of an infomercial. We're going to all pool our money. It's going to be the biggest one in the world. And I didn't know infomercials don't work. That's why you don't see other products doing all that what I do. And nobody told me it didn't work, But they did tell me you need to use an actor, you need to use this, and I said, I just want a real audience and just a friend of mine and trying to do it. Well, the night before, they brought in a producer, and he's from California and from Hollywood. He says, we were doing our reads. He said, this guy's the worst I've ever seen. He will never make it on TV. Why'd you even bring me here? And the next day, though, we had our teleprompter, and there's a real audience, and I'm walking like this, and my unworthiness spirit, I'm reading the teleprompter, and then and he was right. Well, I said, take away the teleprompter, bring in a table that you see right there, bring in a table like I did at the shows, and let's just do it. And we did that, and I had 10 employees at the time. It aired October 7, 2011. I was living in my sister's basement, and it aired, and I thought, at that time we had like 5 or 10 employees. 40 days later, we had 500. It just went, anyway, but then I'm going to really fast forward now. So it gets up to, my pillow exploded. We took in $100 million in 6 months. But I called my friend, I go, do you know that ATMs only go to the 6th digit? He goes, no, Mike, I didn't know that. I was going, what? This is crazy. But what happened then, I trusted people, and I trusted them, and again, it was this betrayal. Big companies took advantage of me. At 6 months later, I was $6 million in debt. I wake up, I owed four companies, and I'm going, I got to work the rest of my life forever. And by the way, when you see me wearing those crosses on TV, I still wasn't walking with Jesus. I was just wearing the cross. I wanted to be that. I'd always wear the cross. And I would argue with people in the middle of the night. They'd say, you're selling a pillow, you're using the cross. Or you're going, how dare you use Christianity? On both sides. And I would sit and argue with them on the phone. They'd get saved by the time I'm off the phone. I go, there. How do you like me now? So but we did, so anyway, in the summer of that, but I got so much awareness. That was the half-hour commercial. And we were able, the box stores did come calling and the shopping channels then because of the awareness. So we spent in the next 2 years digging out. But then by the summer of 2014, we were within 2 days of going under. And I met a gal then, and she changed my life, where she had this relationship with Jesus that I didn't have. I had this, I wanted that, and she kept telling me, you don't have this relationship, you're just, well, I believe in God, you know, I pray every time things are bad, I pray about it, you know. And anyway, we did some praying there. I took everything back in-house, all the advertising, and to do it myself. And then we also did a 1 minute and a 2 minute commercial that failed. And the one gal, she says, Mike, you need to be in the commercial. And I said, why? You know, but it was our last chance anyway. Well, I ended up doing that, and it just exploded to where we got things back and back. I mean, you know, you've all seen it. We've been on TV now 2.2 million times. But it got the company back and starting to recover through 14 and 15. And then what started to happen to me, now I have prayed to God, I don't want to make these mistakes I made in 2012 and in 14. Well, in the spring of 2015, I had a dream that I'd be in a room with Donald Trump. And I'm going, and it was kind of a dream for me, it comes true. 2 weeks later, he announced he was running for president. Now, me coming out of a crack, it was like, I never knew it was like a clean slate. I didn't know a thing about liberals or conservatives, or I had never voted. I'm going, you know, but then he announced he was running for president. So things started happening to me over those next 2 years that don't happen to anyone in the planet, especially an ex-crack addict from Minnesota. I was invited to the National Prayer Breakfast, and now realize I'm not saved yet. I was invited there by a divine appointment. I was picked out of 12 people to pray with Ben Carson in a room. And in that room, we're praying, and he's still running for president. And this guy's saying, a couple of you in this room are going to become very good friends, and you're going to change the course of our, you know, whatever, these prophetic words. And Ben and I are real good friends right now, by the way. But in that, so these things started happening, and it's showing me, things kept happening where I'm going, wow, this has to be God. I go, you have a 1 in a million, a 1 in a billion, and you put stuff off to chance, you add them together. I would always do that. Go, this has to be God. There's no other way. It's impossible. So I had a series of these up until, then I get invited to the Republican convention. I don't know anything about politics. I go in there, I had to learn before I went. What's this? You know, I hope they don't ask me any big words. And I get there, and I'm put in Donald Trump's section. The people, I've never seen, the people were amazing. But one of the things, when I went to leave there, I left there, and Ben and Candy were on a plane, and by random chance, and they said, we prayed about it, or got it in prayer, you were going to be here on this plane. And anyway, we switched seats. Candy says, you have something for my husband, and we had switched seats. But she told me it was only be for 5 minutes. It was the whole trip. But anyway, that went through that. But these things I kept registering in my head. And now I was flying from Philadelphia to LA. And on that plane, I kept going, I get in the front seat, and where you get to 10,000 feet and your email dings, and my phone would ding and say I got an email. I had a book about Donald Trump on there, and I'm going, and I just went like this, and I go, God, tell me, what do I have to do? Because now it's getting late in 2016, and it's in like July. I said, tell me what I have to do with Donald Trump. At that moment in time, my phone dinged and said, hello, Mike, this is Donald Trump. Will you meet me at Trump Tower in New York City? I'm going, God? You know, and the flight, I start crying. The flight attendant goes, you okay? I said, yes, it's a miracle. You know, and so we fast forward. We fast forward up to that meeting, and I walk in there, and there was things that were said. You're never going to meet with them alone. Whatever you do, don't tell them you're a crack addict. Well, I met with them alone. The first thing I said, I was a crack addict. He said, Mike, this is the picture that I'd seen in my dream. Now, when I walked out of that office, we had talked about the inner city. He asked me about my cross, if I was a Christian, all these different things. I go, wow, I don't know anything about other politicians, but this guy would be the best president ever. That was going through my head. But I went and talked to his employees, and they were like talking to mine. And so I just felt that, that I was supposed to go all in. So I did it on faith. I went all in against my company's, wishes, and I end up in the second, third debate, but things kept happening. Besides that, I end up at the summit. We got the one picture here where I'm at the manufacturer. Obviously he was elected, and there's a picture of both of us. I come into the White House and I go, who's sitting here? And he goes, the president is, he wanted to sit by you. Now my friends see this picture and they all came to Jesus that day. They're going, this America, what's he doing on TV? I was just smoking crack with him a few years ago. So, but for me, then, it led up to where I got this ring. I was as a retreat. Kendra kept telling me, you can't go out and evangelize and speak out. You're not ready. And I went into this. It's called a drop zone, and I went in there with hope. And on February 18th, ready for this? 2017 is the day I did a full surrender, and I went in there with hope, and I came out with that, with completely surrendering to Jesus, where now I could go out and speak out for him like I did a pillow. And now to take that platform, one of the first things I did, at US Bank Stadium in Minnesota, I spoke to 50,000 kids and prayed. I did a 5-minute version with an interviewer, so it was pretty scary. But I prayed, and 3 weeks later, I went to Valley Fair in Minnesota with my granddaughter, and all these millennials, these kids kept coming up and going, you saved us, your story of hope. And finally my granddaughter says, she goes, he's my grandpa, we need to go on rides. But all these kids, it was God confirming to me, just like he did with the pillow, that I was on the right path. And then I got approached by you, and you see the movie Unplanned. So in other words, this whole platform, when the movie Unplanned, they called me a year ago, and they said, it was a year ago in the spring, and I'm on a plane, we were gonna go to Israel. And I get a call from this guy. I hadn't talked to him in 2 years, and these two producers, they go, yeah, Mike, this is Michael, whatever his name, Manhart. He says, remember me? I go, yeah. He goes, well, we prayed about it, and you're going to be in our movie. I said, well, I didn't pray about it yet. What movie? And I said, and he tells me about it, this true story of Abby Johnson, and you all know the whole story there. But I said, let me call you back. I prayed about it with Kendra in the plane. I said, instantly to do it. Now I called him back. I said, I'll do it. I'll be this cameo, but I want to know, are you guys, I want it to be a good movie. Are you short any money? And they said, well, matter of fact, we're short $1 million. I said, I'm going to wire it. That's as far as the conversation. I wired it before the plane took off on faith. And I got back from Israel. We ended up at what you've seen earlier, that clip from the movie. But when that came out, I mean, it was perfect timing you can't even time. That was God's timing. And back then, when they were doing that stunt of me driving the bulldozer, I'm looking over during that filming. It was a secret place we filmed in Oklahoma. And here they bring in a stunt man after I waited all day to drive this bulldozer. I go, he doesn't even have a mustache. I go, what are you guys doing? I go, you can't. I said, you can't. I said, a year from now, I'm going to eat that. Well, nobody will know, Mike. And I said, I'll know. I tell the public, I'm going to know. And so I've used that as part of the story. But when we went to film it, then the producer said, okay, because we only have one shot at this because the sun was going to go down. And I had worked on a farm here in Iowa, my uncle's farm in northern Iowa. I said, yeah, I got this, no problem. Well, the bulldozer guy is watching me from about right there, and the three producers are all nervous, and all the extras are out here, and I put it in reverse. I forgot to take the emergency brake off. Whoom! I go, he goes, emergency brake. Now I stick my head, I go, do we want it? I was just testing the law. Let's just do it the way we practice. And I pulled it back, and quick did it before they changed their mind. It had to come down perfect. So when you see me cheering, I was cheering that it pulled it up. Thank you, God. Thank you. Oh, Jesus, thank you. And but where I'm at now is for my platform that God's given me, I've got a recovery network coming out. You're all going to see it in the news. I just came from D.C. talking to a lot of higher up people there, and I'm doing it next week too. But it's called the Lindell Recovery Network. And just to give you a little glimpse of it, you'll be an addict. You'll put in your age and what you're addicted to. Every addict, a 20-year-old opiate addict might not relate to a 50-year-old meth addict. So you put it in, and I've gathered over the last year all these stories of the commonality of the drug, not the bottom. So like for crack, I would say what I didn't like about it. I didn't like being paranoid. I didn't like looking for baking soda, buying a set of silverware when all I needed was a spoon. Looking for chore boy in the middle of the night. And each thing has its commonality. So now if you pull on these pictures, if you put in 25-year-old opiate addict, you're going to see all these 25-year-olds that are set free, and you don't know why. And that's all it is. They just end. Well, I got all those from all the faith-based treatment centers. Now I'm back telling to the addict. I'll say, hey, you guys, your help is over here. I said, I have vetted right now 3,500 treatment centers, all faith-based, all Jesus. These are the ones that work. They work at a 70% or better ratio versus secular 20% and under. And I'm putting them, and I tell the addict, you get in there, and I said, and I talk him off the cliff. I said, you know what? I know it's a long time, but how much do you time if you're going for a skill to be a carpenter? How much do you expend to be an apprentice? How much time? I said, this is an apprenticeship on life. You get in there, and you're going to learn a new life, a new way. And now when they get out, I'm going to say, I'm going to be there for you. You're going to have jobs available to you, and I have mentors that I have all over the country that are paid. These are full-time careers that mentor them. And then there's one more thing I added was an app where it's a relapse trigger app. So let's say you come out of the treatment center and you're ready to set the world on fire, but yet your wife didn't wait for you, or your kids don't like you yet, or Uncle Ray dies. Whatever that is, if your direct mentor didn't go through that, you put it in the app. I went through a death right now, and the ones on all these mentors are on 24/7, like my call center. They reach out. That guy's went through it. Now it's a hope trigger match there. So all this was going to wipe out addiction in the next 6 years. It's just going to. But thank you. I'm way over on time, so God bless you all. Thank you.